Welcome to the Backlash at Backlash.com. My name is Rod Van Mechelen. I've got a cold, I'm sick. And in this video, I'm going to comment on the next 10 years in technology because at least a few of the prominent names in MGTOW have expressed what are, in my opinion, outdated views about technology and the economy. As a boomer MGTOW, I find it a little ironic that I'm more optimistic about the economy and our long-term future than MGTOW who are members of younger generations. Not because I was raised by people blowing smoke up my ass. Throughout my formative years, most of my peers and the adults in my life told me I would fail. My peers because I'm autistic, my teachers because they were racist and I'm an American Indian, and family members because they have emotional issues. So I'm not one of those dope-smoking, coke-snorting special snowflakes. No! My optimism stems from research for investing. Now, I want to say right up front that although I was, once upon a very long time ago, before most of you were born, a stockbroker at Merrill Lynch, I'm not a stockbroker today, and here comes the legal disclaimer. None of this should be construed as investment advice. In fact, because your health is the last thing they care about, the FDA almost certainly disapproves of everything I have to say on the subject of health. And as protecting you from unethical and illegal behavior is the last thing the SEC cares about, I'm sure they disapprove of everything I have to say too. Yes, I know the FDA has nothing to do with investing. I just wanted to take a jab at them too, because few of the federal agencies exist, in my opinion, to look out for you. That said, more than 50 years ago, Walt Disney produced an animated feature about what the year 2000 would look like. Basically, it was the world of the Jetsons. Obviously, they were overly optimistic. But a few decades later, scientists like Eric Drexler and Ray Kurzweil began predicting a future that was different from Disney's view, but just as fantastic. Will they, too, be proved wrong? Before I express my opinion about that, I want to pause here to explain that my view of future tech is based, as I said above, I want to emphasize this, not on the predictions of people like Kurzweil, but on research for investing. There's money to be made in future technology, and many of tomorrow's big tech companies that will have stock prices like Google and Apple are little companies today, with stock prices ranging from a few cents to a few dollars. And I own some stock in some of those companies. So this isn't pie in the sky. My motivation is money. To steal one of my favorite lines from Star Trek, The Voyage Home, I want to be rich beyond my wildest dreams of avarice. So every week I read dozens of reports looking for small seeds that may grow into great fortunes. My sources include MIT Technology Review, Life Extension Foundation, lef.org is their URL, several newsletters, and dozens of websites. Anytime I read or hear about a new technology that interests me, I pay attention, often follow up, and sometimes I invest. Examples of technologies that are just over the horizon or even in the early stages include graphene, regenerative medicines, cures for viruses, all of them, additive manufacturing, and nickel power. Nickel power is probably one of the more exciting. Originally, it was erroneously called cold fusion, and today it is more often called low-energy nuclear reactions, or LENR for short. But no matter what you call it, it works, it's real, and Andrea Rossi and Industrial Heat have been running a 1 megawatt test generator powered by nickel powder for almost a year. There is no way for people to invest directly into Rossi's nickel power generator right now, but I follow it because when they do bring it to market, it will make all other forms of stationary power generation obsolete in most applications. And it's exciting. Another technology that is already on the market but is still immature is additive manufacturing, also known as 3D printing. You can even buy 3D printers on Amazon, and just as Amazon took a lot of business away from brick and mortar stores, 3D printers could eventually take a lot more business away from manufacturers. For example, why buy clothes that kind of fit from a store when you can print your own that fit perfectly? And then, of course, regenerative medicine is right on the cusp of making tremendous breakthroughs. As I think I mentioned in a previous video, BioTime is working on growing replacement organs from your own pluripotent stem cells that are created from your own fat cells. So because it's your own tissue, no immunosuppressant drugs would be necessary. In economics, we have the law of diminishing returns, which refers to the point at which the level of profits or benefits gained is less than the amount of money or energy invested. But for information, we have Kurzweil's law of exponential returns, in which the more we learn, the more we can learn, and the faster we can learn it. Which, when you think about it, makes sense. I mean, we experience that in our own lives. And during the past several thousand years, we as a species have been learning slowly, but the pace at which we have been discovering and acquiring new knowledge has been increasing. And we are now approaching the point at which the rate at which we, as a species, will acquire new knowledge is about to go asymptotic. Amara's law states that, quote, we tend to overestimate the effect of a technology in the short run and underestimate the effect in the long run, close quote. In the 1960s, people overestimated the effects of technology in the short run. Maybe in reaction, that's why people are now underestimating the effects in the long run. But it does look to me like we're on the cusp of momentous changes, and that the next 20 years will mark a pivotal time of transition. Which brings me back to the question, do I think that scientists like Eric Drexler and Ray Kurzweil will be proved wrong? Generally, no. Currently, I'm reading Ray Kurzweil's 2005 book, The Singularity is Near, and already I've spotted a few points where he was overly optimistic. On those, he was wrong, but his overall prognosis remains in play. Computer processors continue to get smaller, more powerful, and cheaper. And to be honest, I think that a virtual agent called Allison could be sufficiently powerful enough within a few years to replace me in my day job. Allison, by the way, is produced by a company called IPsoft. And that's a good thing. I'm not just talking here about Joseph Schumpeter's creative destruction, in which the outdated old, like me, maybe, is replaced by the modern new, thereby freeing people and capital to invest elsewhere. Economists express concern about who will support the older generations as they age, like me. But if more and more jobs are done by robots and automated systems, then what is there to worry about? Economists might reply that you can't tax the income of robots and automated systems, so you can't use their labor to support things like Social Security. But Martin Armstrong has an answer for that. He proposes to eliminate federal taxes altogether. And the odd thing is that his proposal makes sense. My video on that is linked below, as well as my article on the subject, which includes links to the source articles on Armstrong's blog. But we have more to go on than Armstrong's historical database. We also have the Kondratiev wave, which is also called the K-wave theory and the innovation cycle. In 1913, Nikolai Kondratiev discovered the existence of economic cycles that are between 40 and 60 years long. These are broken up into the 4 seasons: spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Spring is a time of recovery, summer a time of prosperity, autumn a time of decline, and winter a time of depression. By the way, Kondratiev, when he presented his findings to Stalin, Joseph Stalin, Kondratiev was all proud. It's like, oh yes, I've proven that capitalism is flawed because it has these cycles. And Stalin was so taken aback by the proof that capitalism could produce prosperity that, well, Kondratiev ended up, I think, in prison for a while, and then he died. Several theories have been offered to explain this. The technological innovation cycle, for example, theorizes that during depressions, people are motivated to innovate, which leads to growth. This growth leads to prosperity, which breeds complacency, which leads back into depression. Human nature. It's a splendid thing. No matter which theory or combination of theories may ultimately prove to be the most accurate, by the cycle count we are currently in economic winter. And Armstrong's economic models indicate that the year 2017 will be the worst of it. The thing that you want to understand about the fate of our future is that left alone, the economy will sort itself out. unfortunately, the central banks, led by the Federal Reserve, are trying to warp all of this to benefit the wealthy, with the bankers in New York appearing to be the primary beneficiaries, according to Armstrong. So that makes it political. Now, I agree with Aaron Clarey when, in a recent video, he said that you shouldn't get upset about things like Obamacare. I think he's right. This is a marathon, after all, not a sprint. And you can burn yourself out if you get overly emotional. You should be concerned, in my opinion, and you can be active, but you don't need to get angry. Most of your opponents are stupid. They're not worth your anger. The decline is inevitable, but it won't last forever or even very long, as during the next few years, according to Armstrong, things will get so bad that one way or another, the majority of people will demand change, and at least for a while, sentiment will strongly support a third party. Libertarian, the party of principle. Free minds, free markets. I graduated high school in 1971. The Vietnam War was in full swing. Protests and riots were happening all over the country. 2 Kennedys had been assassinated. Martin Luther King Jr. had been assassinated. And we were in recession. Our future looked bleak, but we survived. Things will change, slowly at first, then very fast. Contrary to what Sandman said in a recent video, we're on the precipice, and the next 5 years will be hard. But if you're planning to enjoy the decline, you may want to change your plans, because there's no dystopia in our immediate future. None that I see, and Martin Armstrong thinks there is no dystopia too. Certainly no utopia, but in an upcoming video, I'll review Aaron Clarey's book, Enjoy the Decline. I've bought, this makes the 3rd of Aaron Clarey's books that I've bought. I got Worthless for my nephew and 3 nieces. I'm going to get Bachelor Pad Economics for my nephew and 3 nieces. I also bought a copy for myself. Good book, by the way. Really enjoyed it, Aaron. I've heard, of course, Aaron say things where he's referenced Enjoy the Decline. Bern Chapin of Chapin's Inferno, Wandering Cauldron of Politically Incorrect Commentary, has referred to it. And I didn't really agree with what I heard, but how can I comment if I don't read the book? So I just got the book yesterday. Postal Service delivered it. Amazon delivers on Sundays. And started to take a quick glance at it. And the very first few pages where he talks about Berlin in 1945, my very first thought was of a woman named Ellie. Ellie was this old German lady that I met several years ago. If she's still alive, she'd be approaching 100 now. She was in Berlin in 1945. She was drafted into the Luftwaffe when she was 16, and with the Russians and Allies marching on Berlin, she and her flight crew got on their airplane, flew it 20 miles away, ditched the plane, and then right at the worst possible time that Aaron refers to in his book, she made her way back into Berlin to find her brother. And what Aaron describes in the first couple of pages there, well, that's the choice of the people who chose to enjoy the decline. Ellie made a different choice, and when I met her, she had a wondrous life. She had lived so much, and she was so proud of her family. But that's for a future video. That's all for now. Check out the other videos. Subscribe to the channel. For the Backlash at Backlash.com, my name is Rod Van Mechelen.